Welcome to another episode of Signals and Symptoms podcast. We have an amazing special guest. We have Sherri, she's so humble, first of all. When you go bring a guest in and then you go back and look at it, she is just amazing. She is an author. She's the CEO of Medigram. She has actually helped many other startups to ensure that AI governance, cybersecurity is utmost importance. And I tell you right now, as a Save Life AI founder, cybersecurity was the hardest thing to crack, not to mention, of course, when we got our FDA approval process, that was huge. So I'm so glad Sherri is here.
Well, awesome. I'm honored to be here. If I'll just do a quick introduction, I love this combination. It's really the future of medicine, and just what a great group of people. Two awesome physician technologists, and my bestie Ed Marks, who's played just such a huge role in my career and did the two forewords for my two books, Mobile Medicine, Advanced Health Technology, and been just a huge driving force in my career. And so thank you for being here for me for so many important moments in my career, Ed. So I'm Sherri Douville, CEO of Medigram and Chair of the Trustworthy Technology and Innovation Consortium. So what we do is help hospitals and med tech companies build trust infrastructure so that they can deploy AI safely and effectively. And so what that means is building real governance into AI systems so we can manage risk, improve outcomes, and help ensure accountability from boardroom to bedside. And so through TTIC and as co-chair of Trust for IEEE UL 2933, which is a standard for data trust infrastructure, which is used for clinical AI, I work closely with hundreds of engineers around the world with medtech companies and hospitals, and also closely with CIOs, CISOs, clinicians to operationalize trust, to not just write or talk about it, but also build the systems that execute ethics and prove it at runtime and align the stakeholders that execute it and not just in theory.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And this is a very dear to me. Dad, can I go first?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so here's my problem, right? I went to Save Life AI. We had 20 physicians completely did all of the, software in terms of clinical accuracy, all of it, loved it. Went to the C-suite and they said, oh, by the way, we have no idea how to evaluate you properly. I don't know how I have no idea. And this is X, total, the body controls 1,200 to 1,400 providers, depending on how they are scaling. And then I was like surprised that why not? And for me as a founder and a solutions provider, this is becoming a big issue. So how do we, again, we have discussed this before, and I would love your opinion on it, that how to energize make sure that they actually take this seriously, because we are so ethical, because we have the approved high trust cybersecurity framework and all of that. We did all of that, but still there seems to be a significant glacial speed. And more importantly, is there a way to improve overall process? Again, that is my problem as a founder that I want your help with. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want signals and symptoms. Signal means cut the noise, come to the actual problem solution, and symptoms, again, putting it back to the patient itself, just to understand that how, if a physician does X thing with AI, how does it improve? Again, most important one.
You think about the data science team, you think about them, they're in charge of building the rocket that's going to build the future. When you think about building the future, like FTE reallocation, what's going to drive what the C-suite knows is the future of revenue growth, efficiency. But at the same time, the CIO is the one who's in charge of signing the launch permit and in charge of the one, and they're the one that goes to prison if the rocket explodes. And so, whereas the data science team, they tend to be not as in tune with all the requirements around the launch permit, and they tend to be less in tune with the accountability of the outcomes of those requirements. So that's the tension that we have, is how do we solve the tension of the requirements and the accountabilities.
That is beautifully done and beautifully said, and then especially the analogy. I'm gonna push it back to Ed, and then we both of you have experiences, and of course Harvey's there. You want to just give examples for founders like us how to approach this problem better, or in your opinion, how do I involve you both somehow? So all of that. So Ed, go ahead.
All right. So I have two questions that are similar, but bifurcated between sort of vendors and providers. So a lot of our listeners, both vendors and providers. So as we know, there's a lot of startups. Everyone's doing something AI.
Mm-hmm.
And Sherri, they race, and then all of a sudden they look back and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't take care of X, Y, and Z, which are now my big hurdles. So someone listening who's like early stages or contemplating, what are one or two things? So this is for the vendor side. What are one or two things that, an early stage startup, should really think about that you see them often sort of ignoring just because they don't know, because they get too excited about the actual, solution they're building, like fundamental things that they should think about as they go on this journey?
So the most fundamental thing that you should think about is the compatibility in the investor syndicate with the client community. That's the one thing I cannot stress that enough. That I can't say too much, but I would just encourage you to consider who is the buyer, and to really evaluate what investors you would consider talking to based on who the buyer is.
That's a good one.
That's a very good one.
That's pretty deep. So I want to flip it then. And you're right, Sherri, there's really multiple angles. We often think about just like the provider side. I want to say provider, like a hospital-based or payer-based person. And then you have the inventor, the entrepreneur. But yeah, the third leg, and maybe there's more legs, is the investor. So it's this complex triangle. And like I said, there's probably more to it than that. But on the provider side, so as you know, a lot of the looks are like a deer in headlights, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I get all these amazing opportunities by great companies. And what do I do? What are some of what's one or two things that you would advise? Because as you know, there's a handful, right? 10% of the providers, payers, they're ready. They've got all these things in place, which I'm not going to name because I want you to hit on them. They got all these things in place and they're ready and they're going and they're leading. But there's 90% that are still like, so what are one or two things you would recommend to our listeners who are in that space where like, hey, I'm a leader here in my health system or my payer company, and dang, I know I need to do something. What do I do?
You mean to screen, or what would
to get set up? Like, I know one thing that you're big on is governance. Like you need to, because again, people are they're going 100 miles an hour. When they finally do move, they go 100 miles an hour, and then they're like down the road and then look behind at all the wreckage because they didn't take care of certain fundamentals, and one of them being governance. What are any other items like, and you can speak about governance as well. Like, what do they need to set up in order to be successful?
Absolutely. Yes. There's many things that they need to do, to set up to be successful. So I think that there has to be the product and the workflow have to be, I think most failures come when you try to bolt on governance to systems that were never designed, for accountability. And you also have to think about, what is the business trying to do? I think that's the challenge for a lot of health systems and a lot of entrepreneurs, trying to work with the health system. So I think the biggest mistake actually that most boards are trying to make is that they don't need themselves to be AI experts. So we are going to be coming out with another book to help them. They need to just be asking the right questions. And so I know that this podcast, you guys wanted to talk about equity. And so as part of governance, so the questions would be around the business of healthcare, which is about safety, explainability, equity. So boards need to govern AI the same way they're governing finance, clinical quality. And the way they need to do that is just with a consistency, right? With dashboards, with threshold, with evidence-based oversight. And so what they don't want to do is treat it like innovation experiments.
Yeah.
They need to be shifting more into a system of record where they're managing with real accountability. And so what we want to do, and what we're starting to do already, is work with boards to integrate AI with oversight in their existing structures.
So, Sherri, this is one of those tough questions because it's so hard to predict the future, but you've got such a great grounding, your career previously. And I'll drop in the notes some podcasts that Sherri and I have done together a couple of years ago, which goes in depth into who she is as a person, how she was raised, all of her formative years, and all the great expertise that she brings to the table. So we'll drop that in there. But if you're looking forward, and I think we can only go 1 to 2 years, and where do you think we'll be? Like, you're back on the podcast in a year or two. Have we transformed healthcare? Is primary care the same as it has been? What changes do you think? And I'm sure you and Art, your wonderful husband, talk about this all the time at the dinner table. So what changes do you foresee in the next 1 to 2 years?
So the big changes that we're anticipating is a lot of consolidation, and we're seeing a lot of convergence with life sciences and large health systems. And that's where we're doing a lot of work personally. We're bringing a lot of that to AI Med with TTIC. And so that's what I can't predict the exact timelines, but within 2 years, we're going to see a lot of manifestation of that.
So here's what I wanted to say. What I'm hearing from 10,000 feet high is working backwards is my favorite phrase. So you guys are identifying the problem, the pain points, and literally working backwards. What is causing the friction? What is causing these things? And you guys are thinking about it and working on it and creating solutions and writing books. And that really makes me really excited. The second thing I want to say is, in AI and medicine, the greatest risk is not dreaming big enough. Right? And you guys are doing it. You guys are dreaming big, but with Sherri's husband and your brains and knowing what those friction points are, you're able to push the envelope because you know what can be done now. So I really applaud what you're doing, and I can't wait to see what you're presenting here in a couple of weeks now or less. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. Well, we do actually execute. I mean, that's our passion.
So going back to number one, future, expand on consolidation and convergence. Number two, AI adoption. What is the biggest rate limiting factor? And in the next 1 to 2 years, do you see those limiting factors move away?
I think it's actually mindset is the biggest limiting factor. And I push on my team on their mindset. Because ironically, the biggest problem in healthcare is really is misunderstanding idealism. Because we are living in an AI economy, and there's a lot about it that probably feels unfair and is not what any one of us personally would design. But you have to accept it for what it is, and deal with it and deal with it the best way that any of us know how. And I think what's nice about having communities and a network and a consortium is that there's a lot that you can do. And I will make one recommendation for Greg Sattel, who is a preeminent evidence-based change management scholar of our time, is that there is a lot that you can do when you focus. And he's got a book called Cascades. And we have seen tremendous progress with that, and I highly recommend that book. So we've been focused on helping hospitals align developers, clinicians, patients through shared governance protocols. So that's not just aspirations. That is aligning. To make sure their operations, execute what their aspirations, say. And so the biggest I call it misplaced idealism is like I think the biggest thing that potentially holds back healthcare. And I know that probably sounds very probably controversial, but I think it has to be said because we have no time to waste. Q2 next year, hospitals are going to get slammed. I was telling Ed with audits from multiple directions, federally, CMS, state, and then we have the OBA related, the OBA related stuff that comes after that, and we just have no time to waste. And so that's why I'm willing to say the things that probably other people would consider very controversial, because we just have no time to waste.
What's been the one thing that gives you hope for the future based on what we've seen, as hard as it is, and all the politics and all the stuff that happens in life? But what's one thing, in all your studies and all the people you're coming across and all the things that we have the potential to do, what's one thing that gives you the most hope?
Just human resilience. It really does give me hope. And that's why I told this group about cascades. We have had lots of stunning, tremendous outcomes from leveraging cascades, a lot of career outcomes from the group within TTIC and a lot of advancements.
Yeah.
I won't list them all here, but I think you've been following the group for a while and you've been part of it and you've been an accelerant. So thank you for that. And I mean, we've had a lot of, the reason why we have so many great people coming is, in a lot of ways, the industry had been on life support, and we can't take the credit for a lot of extraordinary people, but we were able to help a lot of the top people really find their best at a very difficult time, and give them the frameworks, the taxonomy, the ability to be their best. And that feels really good. And it's the right thing for the patients, for their institutions, and just a tremendous impact for many, many lives and for their careers. And it fires me up. And so that's very rewarding.